Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the challenges of African American youth. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about some of the challenges faced by African American youth, Minister Gregory Taylor. Minister Taylor has been with us on a number of occasions, and he's back today to talk about some of the problems and some of the issues that many of our African American youth face. But first of all, Mr. Taylor, let's see if you can give us some information about your background, your education, and some of your experiences, and then we'll get out of this segment, and then we'll go into the second segment and talk about some of the specific challenges that our youth are faced with today. Let's do it from that perspective.
Okay. Well, Dr. Haney, my name is Gregory Taylor. I'm from Northport, Alabama, and I grew up in the 50s and 60s period. I grew up with a mother and a father. My mother was a homemaker. My father was a chemical worker and a plumber. He was also in World War II, and he was, staff sergeant, World War II. And my educational experiences in elementary school, Northport, junior high, Matthews Elementary School, and Tuscaloosa County High in the Northport area. And my experiences in terms of education and background, I went to school at Selma University, and I had a struggle in learning to read, and I realized early on that I was going to have to teach myself to read, and I'm going to have to do a lot of things in those areas to teach myself a lot of things in the classroom, because I didn't have the ability to know how to do a lot of things in class.
And so in a real sense, dealing with your background, your education, and some of your experiences, what were some of the things, Minister Taylor, that you were involved in lead into this particular show this morning? Look over some of your experiences and some of the things that you've had to deal with.
In terms of education or particular?
In terms of your experiences.
Okay. Well, I graduated from an unaccredited college, Selma University, where we were taught to you be the credit. Since the school didn't have any accreditation, you be the credit. We were taught to appreciate, and that's the deepest feeling that you can have for someone else. My education was funded by the churches in Alabama. The women in the Alabama Baptist Convention was responsible for funding me and getting a basic education. I didn't come from a home. In my family, Dr. Haney, my mother and father were acting out family life. There's a difference. When you come from a home where they're acting it out, you don't hear them talking to each other. They're just acting it out. So I didn't get the interpersonal communication skills that kids normally get from mother and father when they see them talking to each other. I got those experiences by living in the home of educators in Birmingham, Dr. Wilson Fallon Jr., president of Birmingham Baptist College. I had a chance to live in his home to see families interacting. And today, our youth are without that. And I keep that in mind to help them in the ways that I can, to supplement for what they did not get. A lot of them, there's only one parent in the home, and a lot of our churches is supposed to be focusing on Christian education, educating our kids. Our first national holiday actually was supposed to have been May 17, 1954. That would have been a National Education Day. And Dr. Haney, when I discovered that, I was greatly disappointed, because it helps me to see across the board how our kids are behind in education. And they are not to be blamed for it. It's those who went before them. And I can recall my minister in church used to say, before these young folks got on drugs, mother and daddy was already taking pills. And I believe in using, we are in a health state today, education, health, and transportation. These are our main areas today. And when I look at those areas in our kids today, I grew up through that same era of being affected by those things. And so I know that our kids today have been in these same areas. And one of the other things in the book, How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, and Listen So Kids Will Talk, it explains to you how a child's most basic fear is sound and falling. And then we can't ignore prenatal education. This is what Dr. T. Barry Brazelton emeritus pediatrician from Harvard. He said what happens after birth is a direct connection to what happened before birth. So I can't be real and not bring attention to that. There's no birth memory in a lot of the kids today. They're wondering.
Very good. Let's, what we'll do, we'll stop at this point and we'll take our first commercial break.
Okay.
And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Speak up louder.
Sure.
You're too big a man.
Okay.
Up there. Speak up.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay. I'm going to pick up where we left off.
Okay. Sure.
Now you're going to talk about your authors and all those other folks that you want to talk about.
Okay.
Don't let nothing inhibit you.
Yes.
But the idea is the situation of African American youth. Now,
Yes.
like what you said about one family, single family homes and et cetera. That's one of the problems.
Yes.
And talk about that. But
Yes.
you see them every day. You talk to them every day. You know what they're talking about. And so this, we're going to open up the second.
How's that?
That's fine. Is that fine? How is that now? Can you hear me? Let's see, our second show is okay. And I'm trying to get this big man to speak up. Sure. I can barely hear me. Mama, this is second segment, okay. How does it sound now? Can you hear me now? How do you? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Huh?
Okay, we're good.
Are you good? Okay. Articulate. Okay. We're coming back to the second segment. I'm going to introduce the second segment, and I'll. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Minister Gregory Taylor, and he's giving us some information in reference to some of the challenges of African American youth in today's society. And so, Minister Taylor, let's pick up where we left off the last time, and you gave us some excellent information in reference to your background, education, and some of your experiences. So let's broaden that in terms of dealing with some of the problems, some of the challenges that are faced by African American youth today. Not to say that only African American youth are faced with these challenges, but to recognize that we want to be specific in reference to that particular group this morning. Let's continue from that point of view.
And speaking from my experiences, my mother taught me how to read the Bible, and she took me to church. And she also gave me ice cream on Sunday evening. These three things have had an incredible impact on me. But I discovered that when she used to make me feel guilty when I didn't know how to pronounce a word, I realized when I got older that she didn't know phonics. And that principle is applicable to the classroom. A lot of teachers who don't know different things, they know how to make the child feel embarrassed when they ask questions, afraid to ask questions because the teacher don't know how to answer the question. In Atlanta, the superintendent of the Decatur school system used to hire me as a sub-teacher to teach English classes because he wanted the African-American kids to hear the language being spoken correctly. And I've said this before, a lot of them are verbally illiterate. They are certificated, but they're not certified. And so all of these things are going on in the classroom. The kids used to laugh at me when I was in the first grade. I didn't know phonics. And when it came reading time, normally at the end of the day, the kids would get ready to laugh. Why? Because I didn't know phonics. My mother didn't know phonics. So I was lacking in a lot of things. And in kindergarten, I was afraid of the teacher's voice. My mother allowed me to quit kindergarten because they don't realize, as I said earlier, a child's most basic fear is sound and falling. you know, and a lot of people don't realize this in the classroom in a lot of different settings. And today, the 60s have left them with protest psychosis skills. They don't have interpersonal communication skills. Those things are very important. Conflict resolution skills. Those skills come from the home or from the family. And if you don't have them, you have to find someone who have them to transmit them to you. And I didn't learn that, Dr. Haney, until I was in college. At the University of Alabama in a communication class, I learned what it meant to encode, decode, and get feedback and interference prone. All of these things that I had a chance to learn. I even interviewed Dr. Bernard Bridges, 45-minute interview, and he wanted to know why I was afraid of the voice of Dr. MLK Jr. I did. When I first heard his voice in the early 60s, first thing I said was, this man light gonna be in the way of me growing up. And that's about 63 years ago, and it's become a reality. And I just steered clear of it. When I mention the name, a lot of people think I'm bashing the man, this kind of thing. But there is another side to this. And I can't help it because in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, in the church was my first school. We learned the old hymns. We had to stand behind the old people and sing. We couldn't rock, march, or clap in church or anything of that nature. We had to stand still behind the elderly, and we caught the spirit of the old music. And when you find people who are trying to teach it, that's just about the money. That's all it is. So I'm a product in reference to church of the soundest First Baptist Church in the state of Alabama, and I have no apologies to anyone for that. This is why I wear my church printed on my shirts. I've started to wear my articles that I've been writing in the newspaper on my clothing because the publishers here in black publication, they don't want to hear about their roots. The old spirituals are the greatest gift the Negro has given to America, and Dr. W.E. Du Bois said that, and it's most neglected. And Dr. Revis Mitchell at Fisk University, he says that the Negro has not been educated until you educate him in his music. And so these are the things that are in my person. And I can't help this because I believe that they are connected directly to the country being free. And I sent President Donald J. Trump a copy of Dr. Bradley's book where he sang in Soul Career. And he was kind enough to send me a thank you note. Dr. Bradley received the highest award in Soul Career. My father was in the Ruski Islands in 1945, this month, where he caught cholera, contracted cholera and typhus. So I have to share my struggle, you know, in order what it's been like to me in this world. I didn't come from an educated background. And I remember Sir Winston Churchill saying, an uneducated man can educate themselves by studying quotes. And I have a quote library, and I enjoy studying the different quotes and things in books. It helps you to give insight. And that was one of the things that he said, about an uneducated man can educate himself by using quotes and things of this nature.
So you think that our young people should pay more attention to reading and the teachers and have a better understanding of their place in society today? Is that what you're saying?
And I'm saying that, but I'm saying it in this way. When a person sound what they say and say what they sound, these young people know there are no discrepancies in their speech. They can tell so much about us as to how we speak if we know what they're talking about. And I use this to develop contact with people. And I have a problem in customer service sometimes. And I'll be honest, I'll say, my mother was hungry and pregnant with me too. Why? I talked to Dr. Christine Ferris, the older sister of Dr. MLK Jr. And I asked her, I said, Miss Ferris, I said, you don't sound like your family went without food. She said, we did not. How could I discern that? Because my mother come out of a family of 10. Food was a constant fight. I'm reading a book about night eating syndrome. I had been eating it at night. This book is helping me to not eat at night and break the fast in the morning. I'm self-educated, Dr. Haney, and I didn't have it what it took. I graduated from an unaccredited institution. But at Selma University, they loved us and they appreciated us. And that's what I appreciate so much about them. And when I was in Alabama in the ministry, I was invited around to preach at the churches in Tuscaloosa. They paid and gave me money. I saw kids walk around the table and put money on the table for me to go to school at Selma University. And they loved us and they appreciated us. And this is what I remember. And in customer service today, the CEO of the Sonovia Corporation said a lot of corporations have lost the ability to appreciate. And before they can compete again, they have got to find those things.
Okay, so what we'll do, we'll take our second commercial break, and then we'll come back, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. And sound like you're over there.
Yeah.
You see, and so now we've got 10 minutes, and I'm going to introduce the show again.
Okay.
You see, and you take those 10 minutes and you articulate and you make some noise over there.
Okay.
You know, be forthright with
Yes.
it. And that's what I want you to do.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is where, okay?
You all ready?
All right. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Minister Gregory Taylor, and he's given us some information in reference to some of the challenges of African American youth in today's society. Minister Taylor, let's see if we can pick up where we left off the second segment and give you an opportunity during this last 10 minutes to talk about some of the problems that many of our youth are having and some of the solutions that you would offer in reference to how they might be able to overcome. I think you've indicated that you overcame from a very, very difficult situation, and some of them are in very, very difficult situations, and so apply some of the things that you had to overcome with their lives today.
Well, Dr. Haney, I believe I have the best one. My life follows the death of a brother, Roosevelt Taylor Jr., and he died from what is called an atelectasis intracranial hemorrhage. An injury to the neck caused his lungs to collapse and his brain exploded in the skull. He was born August 27, 1953. And the reason I'm sharing this is we are suffering today from ungrieved grief. And I understand the spirit of it. People are being misconstrued. Police officers are being shot. Police are shooting people. Young black males, all types of people are being shot because they are misconstruing one another's intent. I don't have the protest psychosis skill. And one of the other things I believe is that we need to find the mothers who were pregnant in the 50s and 60s. As Dr. David T. Barrington said, what happened before life, after life, it's directly connected to what happened before life. That means birth. And we have a birthday, you have a birth certificate, we have birthmarks, we have birth stones, and a lot of things is relating to birth. But a lot of people don't have no consciousness of a birth memory. I was in the womb when the Emmett Till tragedy happened. I was shaped by that, but when I see that image, first thing I do is remember, where was I? I was in my mother's womb. And in Chicago, I found a lady who attended his funeral. This is Emmett Till. And she told her daughter that she was pregnant with her son. That was my blessing, because see, I was trespassed wrongfully from Selma University on the day Rosa Parks refused her seat, and the day the attorney was born on the day Emmett Till died. That ain't no right in that. You know, no good is in that. I don't see no good in that, the misuse of that. And you can say that my brother, Roosevelt Taylor Jr., who I believe would have been a president of this country, he has 2 graves in Alabama. And my mother has 2 birth certificates. And my mother and father gave birth to 2 sons who were both born on the birthdays of American presidents. And there's something about the presidency I have to support because of how I entered this world. And Dr. Haney, I didn't know I was going to be saying all of this, but today the ungrieved grief and interpersonal communication have got to be addressed. And in Alabama, when they trespassed me from Selma University, I asked the city of Norfolk to take the name of MLK down off my childhood street, because that era has done nothing but hypnotize America. And they need to learn how to question that. If those rights were not the best method for going about getting rights in America. And our young people need to know the other side of this. And the ones who are out there, they need to explain it. I talked to Dr. C.T. Vivian talked to several of the civil rights leaders. Dr. T.J. Jemison, President of the National Baptist Convention, he led the first bus boycott. And I'm saying this so that these young people will go research these individuals and look at their lives, and you get another angle of something that happened 50, 60 years ago. I'm 63 years ago. And I used to go to bed, Dr. Haney, at night, afraid to death, with nobody to talk to about what I was feeling. I'd been frightened with a Santa Claus face as a little boy, and I would see these images of JFK, Robert Kennedy, MLK on my window, but nobody to talk to what I was feeling inside, dealing with a lot of ungrieved grief. But what has happened today, I have thought my way back to the day before JFK's life came to an end. And Senator Bob Dole said that the only way that they can see forward is to build a better bridge to the past, to avoid a lot of the things that are going on. And as you mentioned about the young people, suggestions what they do, young people know when someone is talking about something that they need, you know? And so I have to tell it what my life has been. And this is what had been going on. My father lost everything he worked for as a result of the civil rights movement. And to simplify it, see, a lot of the things that you all have benefited from and the people here, they have been against me. You know, they have prevented me. I've had to find out what happened to my brother in the midst of educating myself. And one of the illustrations I use in the classroom, when it comes to comprehension, I teach kids how to concentrate on why they can't concentrate. When I was in junior college, I didn't even know how to write a paragraph. You know, I was ashamed of that. And that's what I felt growing up in school, feeling shame. But I set out to get an understanding of myself, because the way a person speaks is directly connected to how well they understand self, you know? So these are the things that I know. I don't have to tell young people what it is they need. And my minister used to say, and I've said this on here before these young folk got on drugs, mom and dad was already taking pills, you know? And these are the areas where older people have got to question themselves and ask them what was on their mind when they were bringing children into the world. And as you said earlier, good men have come forth for the sake of their country. What I'm about is about the country. My father was in the CCC. I'm ambassador for there today. And he never lost a soldier in World War II. And I'm dealing with his health condition from Nagasaki. He's under the influence of those happening there. And you look at my family medical records, you can see and trace it back to Nagasaki on August 9th, 1945. And so this is what it is. This is all I have. You know, I have to be real and true to myself in order to help these young people today. And I'm open, you know, to helping them. And I love question. Between every question and answer, there are ideas. And I'm from Alabama, and in the Deep South, we have a note of sorrow in church music that y'all don't have in any other states in this country.
Explain that, Reverend.
Okay, here in the North, you take Fish University, the Fish Jubilee Singers, how their music got started. There's freedom songs. Those songs were written because they needed money to protest, you know, and they were raising money. I mean, they were using the songs to raise money. And Fish University, those Jubilee Singers was raising money for their school, you know. And in Alabama, the church, where we learned the old spiritual, and I consider myself not to be bragging, but I consider myself to have a multi-billion-dollar memory in the pure old spirituals of the church. I can sing. I sing only to the seniors who are sick and shut in, because they are the ones who have been neglected, you know? And I have about 10 90-year-old mentors today. They can tell me 30-year periods 3 times of what has gone on in the world. And I can connect to each one of them for the sake of our young people today, you know?
And so in a real sense, you think that they ought to pay more attention to what their elders are saying. And I don't think that that's anything new, but expound upon that.
Okay. The elders have in their understanding of the music, the old spirituals, as my spiritual father used to say, Dr. Owens Harvey, the old spirituals were born in the heart of our ancestors in the fields. And they are our anchor in America and the means by which our ancestry passed from one generation to the next. When they left the church, first they rewrote the songs and left the church and went into the streets and sang those songs. But when they come back, they were not the same singers they left as. I've kept that memory pure. And I do not mix music. I worked with the estate of Sir J. Robert Bradley. He was a purist. His name is on the Granite Mall down there, a singing son of Tennessee. And 75 feet from him, you have the CCC men. And the wishes of the CCC are to be remembered in songs of praise at their reward. And I'm using Dr. Bradley's music to do that. He sang for the Queen of England, and a whole lot of singing all over this world, China, and Dr. W.A. Criswell. And I'm sharing information that I hope will prevent a war. You know, and these young people will not have to be out here fighting. You know, there needs to be more discussion in church now than ever before, not singing. They need to discuss. And in discussion, you're learning interpersonal communication skills, and you're also learning how to communicate. And when I got my first traffic ticket, my father took me to meet the police. And here in Nashville, you know, I befriend them because that's the way I was taught.
Very good. Let me thank you, Minister, for bringing that excellent information. And let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week to another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.